Enes Kanter Freedom, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
It's good to have you with us. I've been looking forward to this conversation. As I got ready for our chat, I kept thinking about the process of changing one's name,
Mhm,
what that must be like. And I think the thing that kept coming back to me is with a new name, which is something you took
mhm.
a couple of years ago when you became a US citizen, how does that change one's sense of identity?
Well, I now can travel outside of America. I think that's the most beautiful thing because before I become a citizen, my name was on Interpol list, so I wasn't really allowed to leave America. For the last 5, 6 years, I was pretty much stuck in this country. But then, after becoming a citizen, changing my last name, now I have a new passport. I can actually like start traveling outside of America and do what I love to do. Um, it was definitely been a tough process. I remember how I actually changed my name. The reason I changed my name, I'll tell you the quick story. I I remember I came to America for the first time back in 2009, and I was going to high school, and I remember one of my, after we had a practice, after the practice, we all sitting down in a locker room, and actually one of my teammates said something about the president, and I turned around immediately. I was like, I saw his post on Facebook. I was like, dude, what are you doing? He turned around and he started to he looked at me. He was like, what's up? He said, well, I saw your post, you might be in jail the next day. And he was very confused. He was like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, don't you guys go to prison or be arrested, whatever, if you guys criticize the governor or president? And they were started to laugh, and they started to tell me about the freedom we have in America, freedom of speech and stuff. I was like, well, this is something that I've never experienced before, you know.
I mean, as you tell that story, it's important for our listeners to understand your reference point when you were making those comments, because you were born in Switzerland to Turkish
Hmm.
parents, but you grew up in Turkey.
Yeah.
So you have a completely different frame of reference and a frame of reference for freedom.
Yeah.
Talk to me and talk to us about what life was like growing up in Turkey and how you shaped
Yeah,
that perspective.
it was a very very definitely different life, because I remember when I was growing up. So in Turkey, especially, I'm born in Switzerland, but I moved back to Turkey
Mhm.
when I was 9 months. I grew up in an area where politician keeps attacking the West to get more votes, to be to go viral, or to gain more support from their base. I remember, I was 9, 10 years old. I went downstairs to play with my, friends, and what I witnessed that day, I still remember. I was so shocked. I remember, my friends were burning American flags. They were burning,
Hmm.
Israeli flags, and they were breaking crosses. And I told them, like, dude, what are you guys doing? He's like, well, the Americans are evil, and Jewish people are devil, and Christians are horrible, and blah blah. And I was like, what? And I
And this is as
remember
a child. These are
this is
children.
Yep, this is as a when I was a kid. I was 9 years old, and I remember immediately. I they gave me a flag to burn it. Actually, I throw it down. I ran upstairs to my mom. I was like, Mom, my friends are telling me, they hate America, they hate Israel, hate Christians and stuff. Like, what do I do? My mom said, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but do not hate anyone before you meet them. So I give a promise to my mom that day. And then, but I remember, every time I turn on the TV, every time, if there's a rally or there's anything, all these, politicians were keep attacking America, keep attacking, Jewish people, Christian people, to get more votes. Because unfortunately, the base is so uneducated, they just don't know any better. So whatever they seen on TV, that's like, wow, okay, this is, I guess, what we should do too. So that's why there are so many, generation in Turkey growing up anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-West. Actually, you can, if you have any Middle Eastern friend, you can ask him that. But in some of the countries in Middle East, front of classes, in schools, they have American flags. And if you don't step on them, you, as a kid, you're not allowed to attend a class. So
Wow.
that's how crazy some of the countries are.
And with that being said, you referenced your mum saying to you, "Don't hate anyone until you
Hmm.
meet them." Um, and you've even I've read you tell the story that your activism really started as a 9-year-old. That's
Hmm.
when it kind of really opened up your mind. But your mother was a nurse. That's my understanding. Your
Yes.
father was an academic.
Hmm.
Um, was it a home that was overtly um, political? Were you talking about issues? Was it, I mean, I know your mother made that comment, but were broader conversations about issues and the state of Turkey happening in your home?
Well, he was a very well educated, I'll tell you that, because even, my dad even didn't want me to even play basketball. My mom did not care about me playing any sports. They were all about education. They wanted
Yeah.
me to go to class and, just read and, take just get straight A's and stuff. But no, they were very, very well educated. They showed me, I mean, they taught me about respecting others, respecting other cultures and religions and other people. So that's why but unfortunately, it's not many of the people like that in Turkey. I mean, where I grew up, the girls are usually don't even go to school. Their
Hmm.
parents says, well, let's not put you in a school and you'll get married at the age of like 14, 15,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And then their life become horrible. They literally
Hmm.
become slaves because they get married with this men who are like 40, 45 years old
And
because
their
the
children
man
having
is
their childhoods
exactly
taken.
the man is so rich and it pays the family like whatever amount of money and then literally buys the girl and her whole life literally becomes she becomes a slave.
Yeah, I mean, child marriage is sadly a scourge in far too many parts of the world, including many parts of Africa, where I'm from. You,
Hmm.
you you talk about your parents being very academically minded, academically focused, wanting very different things for you than playing sports. So when did you realize that basketball was actually your passion and it wasn't going to be about
Yeah.
hitting the books?
Well, I actually wanted to be a soccer player because that's like the number one sport in Turkey, and I was too tall for it, too slow for it actually, so it didn't really work. Uh, but then, I was like, well, I just started playing basketball and I fell in love with it. But I think I moved to Istanbul and to play actually professional basketball, and I became a professional when I was like, well, 15, 16 years old, very early
Hmm.
age, and then I started making money. I remember first time I made my first check. Well, because I become a professional at the age of like 15, and after making my first check, my dad is like, "Okay, from now you play basketball." He's like, "School is important and education, whatever, but you play basketball."
So, but the thing is that money that you made in Turkey became a problem when you came to the US.
Huge problem.
Talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, so it was a crazy situation because I was 17 years old when I decided to come to America because my dad wanted me to come here, play basketball and get my education at the same time, because I just didn't want to sign this contract in Turkey when I was 16 and I was going to come to NBA when I was 22. It was too late. And also in Turkey, you either have to pick education or sports. You cannot do both. Um, so my dad, like I said again, it was all about education. So I came here, but when I was 17 years old, my dad signed a contract with one of the shoe companies in Turkey, and they made me a professional basketball player. So that's why I couldn't play high school. And
Hmm.
then just because of I was taking money um, from my Turkish club team, which I did not take in. My dad took it because I was 17. NCAA said, "Well, sorry, you are permanently ineligible. You're not allowed to play basketball ever again." So it
Hmm.
was definitely a tough situation for me.
Nonetheless, you continued your dreams of joining the NBA, which you eventually did. But I do want to ask you, before you got into the
Hmm.
NBA and you were, I think, the overall third pick from Utah Jazz of that year's draft. What was your idea of the NBA before you joined it? I ask that because we'll come back full circle to the reality.
Yeah. Well, my idea of the NBA was first of all, I mean, back then I didn't really care about anything but just playing basketball, having fun with my teammates and stuff. I didn't know that I was going to have the platform that I have right now and stuff. I mean, every kid in the world who's playing basketball is a dream to become an NBA player. I think the idea of the NBA is I just wanted to get into NBA to represent my country, my flag, my people, and I was just one of the. I think when I got into NBA, there was only like three or four Turkish NBA players playing in NBA. So I was like, well, I'm gonna become one of them. So and that's very exciting. You know, I was gonna represent my whole country, my family, my people, the people I love. So it was a very exciting actually time.
And when you joined the NBA, just to be clear, there was still that love for Turkey. I
Of
mean,
course,
and I think
yes.
there's also a distinction to be made between the criticisms you've expressed
Mhm.
for the Turkish government and your love for the country, correct?
Yeah, of course, there's a huge difference. I mean, whenever I talk about Turkey, people always mistaken that I'm don't like my country. People are
Hmm.
wrong. I love my country. I love my flag. I love my people. That whenever even when I get drafted, the first thing they said from Turkey, you know, my problem is with the current regime. It's not with my country or it's not with my people. I love my country. The reason I'm so outspoken is because I love my country. Um, and I remember, when I heard my name from back then, it was David Stern. Um, and I look at the crowd, there was a Turkish flag. I was like, wow, this is something so amazing. I'm finally one of the three or four NBA players who are representing the whole Turkey, almost 85 million people. So it was definitely very exciting.
You were drafted in 2011, as
Mhm.
you expressed, with this love for Turkey in your heart. And then things changed and you started to speak out about the government. What was the transition? What was the trigger?
So, I mean, it was hard because I remember. So no high school because I had a deal with shoe company, no college because I took money from which my family did, not me, but like I will say I took money from my old club team, and then I finally got drafted. I'm like, well, I'm finally gonna play basketball. I'm so excited. Then lockout happened. So in my head, I was so frustrated. No high school, no college, no MBA. I was really frustrated. And then December, they said the lockout is over. I stopped playing basketball. Like I said again, my first 2 years, all I cared about was playing basketball, nothing else. Play basketball, have fun with my teammates. I had really good players like Al Jefferson, Paul Millsap, Jamal Tinsley. These are all guys. I don't know if you'll remember those. but uh, but then, I remember for the first time I was outspoken, it was back in 2013. And there was a big corruption scandal happening in Turkey. President Erdogan and his family and some of the members of the Congress were involved in it. And that was a fact, like first time I actually said something about it. And I
What
mean,
did you say? Do you remember what you said?
so after he got caught, he started to put innocent people in jail. He started to put prosecutors, lawyers, judges, journalists. He started to shut down media outlets who were talking about this corruption scandal. And I was like, I don't care who you are. I mean, if you are fighting against a free media, I'm going to say something about it. You know, so as a, as a NBA player, I literally put a tweet out there to not, fight with free media. Like I said, because the NBA platform became a conversation here in the United States and Turkey. And I was like, even one single tweet can affect this much. And from now
Sure.
on, I'm going to start to pay attention about what's going on in my country more. And yeah, after that, I started to study.
Yeah, so, and you're thinking, I'm going to do this and it's going to be a powerful tool,
Mhm.
which it is. And your family's reaction is what?
Different, way different. Um, so the more I study, the more like big, news outlets started to give me a platform because it was all over the world. So how he stole money from people, innocent people, and put innocents in jail. So I started to go on this like TV channels and internationally in America. I started to write op-eds, started giving interviews, and every time I say something, it was becoming a conversation, and that really bothered the Turkish government. Um, so then, my family were really affected. My dad was a scientist. He got fired from his job. My sister went to medical school for 6 years. She still cannot find a job. My little brother was, playing basketball. I think that's the saddest one. He got kicked out in every team because the same last name. So they were getting affected so much they had to put a statement out there and said we are disowning Enes publicly. The letter is still out there on the internet if you're gonna go and check it out. But then Turkish government didn't believe that. They sent police to my house in Turkey and they raided the whole house and they took every electronics away, phones, computers, laptops, iPads, because they wanted to see if I am still in contact with my family or not,
Right.
which they
Right.
couldn't find no evidence because I wasn't, but they still took my dad in jail for a while. He's been going in and out of Turkish, jails and courts for 7 years.
My goodness.
And then we put so much pressure with politicians and with media to Turkey, they had to let him go. And then, they revoked my passport, they detained me in Romania, and then they put my name on the Interpol list.
At any point, did you just think the price is too high?
Actually, when I was going through this, a lot of my teammates were asking me that question, like, are you crazy? I got that question so many times. Well, I mean, obviously at the end it's my family and I haven't seen them almost like 9 years now. Um, but like people needs to understand, like there are so many people know my story because I play in NBA, but there are so many stories out there, so many families out there, their situation is way worse than mine. And I remember looking at these numbers. There's actually a really good website, turkeypurge.com, if you guys want to go and check out the real numbers. But there are so many innocents who are in jails, and there are so many reports out there were saying that, there are so many people in jails getting tortured and raped and stuff. And last numbers I was looking at it, there were 17,000 innocent women with almost 1,000 babies and children in jail right now waiting for help. I mean, think about it. 17,000 innocent, and these women had nothing to do with politics or Turkish government. These are just housewives just because of they worked in places like media outlets, schools, dormitories, universities that are against Erdogan. Erdogan put them in jail. That's how crazy the situation is.
Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch have documented the repression of many in media, from the courts. Any opposition to Prime Minister Erdogan has been curtailed, and that's been well documented in various sources and outlets. With that said, I do just want to circle back to your family. What's the state of things between you now?
So right now, there's still no communication between me and my family because I mean they listen on the phones and track down everything that they do. They took their passport away, the government, and now they're not allowed to travel. There are some illegal ways to escape the country, but if they get caught, they either get shot or they will put in prison for life. So they don't want to take that chance because they're very high profile and they're being watched all the time. Um, so, I mean, like I said again, last time I saw them, it was back in, it was almost 9 years ago. So I have a
My
brother
goodness.
who plays basketball in Japan. So I talked to him. It's like, hey, how's mom doing? How's dad doing? How is my sister and stuff? So the government cannot really touch them or do anything because every time that they do anything now, just because I became too powerful, I guess, in the United States and all over the world. And with media, it becomes a conversation and it looks really bad on the Turkish government. But the normal people, like whenever they go on the street, they really harass them. I mean, just recently, I remember my brother was telling me my dad went to supermarket and he was asking for some things and the guy spit on his face and say, get out of
I
here,
read
like you
that.
are a father of a terrorist. They kick him out of a mosque, which is a house of God. you know so they had to move. I don't know how much you know Istanbul, but they were living in Asia side. They had to move to a Europe side because they were getting harassed so much, the place that they live in. But yeah, I mean, it's been 9 years almost.
You haven't just made headlines for what you've said about Turkey and the Turkish government, but also for comments you've made about China. I
Mhm.
want to shift gears and talk about
Of
that.
course.
Why? Because considering, obviously
Mhm.
Turkey makes sense to people.
Right.
It's your home. Those are your
Yeah.
roots. There's so many issues in the world, and this is a question that I put to a lot of the guests on the show: why they choose the issues they choose,
Mhm.
considering there's so many to choose from. why turn your attention to China?
Good question. So I'll tell you another story. So just last year, I was doing a basketball camp in New York with one of the congressmen, Hakeem Jeffries. You can ask him
Mhm.
if you like. But so I did a basketball camp. It was amazing. A lot of people showed up. It was in his district. And then after the basketball camp, I sit down. I was given, autographs and taking pictures one by one. And so I remember taking a picture with this kid, and then his parent was taking a picture, and he pretty much called me out in front of everybody. Kids were there, media was there, a lot of people were there, my friends were there, and he said, "How can you call yourself a human rights activist when your Muslim brothers and sisters are getting tortured and raped every day in concentration camp in China?" And I'm still smiling for the camera, for his kid. And I turned around. I was like, "I promise I'm gonna get back to
Mm.
you." So I was like, I remember canceling everything that day. I went back to my hotel room and I was like, "Oh my God, like this is like, what am I doing?" I mean, obviously the last 8 years, I was focusing on Turkey because my flight was so full. My family's there, I haven't seen them.
Sure.
But then I'm like, human is human. People are people. There are so many people out there who are waiting for help. So I was like, anyway, I started to study about what's happening with Uyghurs.
Mhm.
And then after that, there's a link popped out. I clicked on it, and it was about Tibetans, and then Hong Kongers, and then Taiwanese people. I was like, well, this is pretty much another genocide which is happening in China, and no one really talking about it. So I promised myself, I was like, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to talk about it. But obviously on internet, you can't find all kind of news. You don't know which one to trust or not. Fake news,
And
real
China
news.
denies it. China
Exactly.
denies that
Exactly.
these
So
reports.
I reached out to my manager immediately. I was like, listen, man, I need you to find me a concentration camp survivor. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, I want to sit down with someone who's been in concentration camp in East Turkestan, or you call it Xinjiang. Um, he said, okay. And it took a while, but we found a woman who lives in DC right now. I don't want to give her identity, but she's all over YouTube and stuff. Um, so we sit down, we had a conversation, and I remember she was telling me about the gang rape. She was telling me about the torture methods. She was telling me about the forced sterilization and abortion. She was telling me about the organ harvesting in concentration camps. And I was like, I don't care how much money, business, or whatever is involved. If you are carrying a heart, you have to care about these people. You have to speak up about these people. So, end of our conversation, I asked her, I was like, listen, how can I help you? She said, I'm good. I don't need you to help me. And I was shocked. I'm like, what are you talking about? We've been talking almost 1 hour now. Then why do we have this conversation? She said, well, I'm in America. I'm not in China. I can
Mm.
eat whatever I want, go wherever I want. I can do whatever I want. Help those people. Don't help me. There are 3 million people waiting for help. Help those people. So at that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then the next 3 months in the summertime, I just study about what's going on over there.
And for our listeners, I want to add that a number of outlets, the BBC, CNN, have all reported on
Yeah.
what's happening in Uyghur camps in China, and the reports of widespread sexual abuse and gang
Mm-hmm.
rape and torture are well documented, and a number of people
Mm-hmm.
who say they were in these camps have spoken out about their experiences. Um, you, it was one thing to talk about Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely and when we talked about Turkey, I asked about your family's reaction.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about China.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the NBA's reaction, because
Mm-hmm.
that was also
Yeah.
something very different.
So, everybody can go on front of a camera, make a video and post it. Everybody can tweet something about it or post, or give an interview about the things that they care about. But I actually wanted to do it in a very unique way. I remember when I was a kid, obviously I grew up as a NBA fan, so I was watching NBA all the time. And I remember the first thing I was like, whenever I watched a player, the first thing I was like looking at was the shoes,
Mhm.
what color it is, what brand, if it's comfortable. The next day I was waking up And I was telling my dad, please buy those shoes for me. I mean, every kid in the world loves shoes. Um, so I was like, let's come up with this like a crazy, crazy project where we put all these struggles, all this, pain in basketball shoes, which is made 100% no slave labor, which took me months to find it. Um, and then I reached out to these different artists around the world, which been oppressed by their government. And I reached out to them to just I told them to create me these shoes. So they come up with this, beautiful arts that we put on the shoes. And I remember I didn't want to do the Uyghurs first because I didn't want people to say, hey, Enes is Muslim, that's why he cares about the Muslim. I was like, you know what? That first topic is going to be about Tibetans. Um, I grew up as a uh, Dalai Lama fan, so
Mhm.
um, I come up with this idea. I put the whole thing on my shoes, free Tibet, and I remember I was playing for Boston Celtics, and our first game was against New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden, opening night. Was on ESPN, national TV. The whole world was watching it. One of the biggest rivalry for Boston Celtics. So I put the shoes on. I went out there and I started to, warm up, and all the players were looking at my shoes like so weird. And I remember that, it was, we sang the national anthem. We came in a huddle, and it was a minute before the huddle. And there was two gentlemen from Boston Celtics who works for the NBA came to me and said, you have to take your shoes off, please. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, your shoes will be getting so much attention internationally. You have to take your shoes off. And at that point, I was very confused. I'm like, I even asked him, like, am I doing like, because the last 2 months, I was like, I read the rule book. There was nothing against it, you know? And all the players before, put all kind of messages on their shoes, like, and I was with them, and I even put those too, like Black Lives Matter, Breonna Taylor, I can't breathe, and all that stuff. And I also put those on my shoes too. And I was like, well, if that is human rights, obviously this is too. So they pressured me. I was like, and this was happening a minute before the game in a team huddle. I was like, nope, I'm not taking. It was a perfect moment because I was just getting ready for my citizenship test. So I closed my eyes. I'm like, okay, there are 27 amendments. My first amendment, freedom of speech. I was like, no, I'm not taking them off. And I even told them, like, I don't care even if I get fined, I'm not taking them off. They said, we are not talking about a fine. We're talking about getting banned. I was like, at that moment, I was like, oh my God, this is serious. So at the halftime, I played 0 minutes. I went back to my locker room. I picked up my phone. There was thousands of notifications. I looked at my manager that sent me a text message, and he said every Celtics game is banned in China. It literally took China 24 minutes, first quarter, second quarter, 12, 24 minutes to ban every Celtics game on television the rest of the year. And I pretty much said to myself, well, that actually clearly helps people understand that there's the dictatorship and censorship. So that game I played 0 minutes, which I played every game before that. After the game, I remember after the game, one of the player walked up to me in the locker room and said, this is your last year in the league, right? You are not going to get another contract after this.
And did you believe him when he said that?
Yeah, because he was a person that was my true friend, good friend, and he said, I believe him. And he's like,
And
have
how
fun.
did that make you feel, thinking that this was, because in that moment, what's really being said to you is that this is a turning point. That you're going past the point of return.
Well, I mean, I was like, he told me, like, have fun with it. I hope we win a championship, but I'm not getting another contract after this. But then I'm like, NBA was the first organization that called themselves a social justice organization when all the protests were happening, which I was like supporting them 100%. And I was like, I believe that NBA is going to. I mean, I was kind of believing him, but I just didn't want to believe it.
Now, I should point out at this point that Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, has said that he's in total support of you speaking out.
We're gonna get to that.
Various officials have said that it's
We're gonna
not
get
been
to that.
about the shoes, it's about your dress code and it actually contravening dress code. You say what? And to make the point is, you effectively also said a few weeks ago that you didn't receive any interest during the NBA free agency period.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. Do you think, despite those statements made by Adam Silver and other NBA officials, do you think you have been blackballed for speaking out on China?
So I'll tell you the story, and you can decide yourself. So after the game, I talk about the Turkey last 10 years. I did not get one phone call. Actually, Adam Silver texted me twice and said, whatever you need, we support you. And this is about Turkey. And then China thing happened. I talk about China. One day, my phone was ringing once every hour. It got to a point they were harassing me. The crazy thing is, it wasn't only NBA, it was NBPA, the Player Association, saying that do not wear those shoes ever again. NBA is pressuring us. Please don't do it. They were pressuring me and my manager so much. I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm not going to wear free Tibet shoes ever again. And the next game, I wore free Uyghur shoes. So at that point, they understand. They were just like, they're not going to be able to, handle me. So actually after that, not many people knows, and I actually don't really tell this to anywhere, but I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get another contract after this, so might as well say it. Daryl Morey reached out to me, and he said, listen, NBA, so 2 years ago, I'm not sure how much you know about his situation. He tweeted something about free Hong Kong, and it became a huge mess for the NBA and stuff. So he was the GM of Houston Rockets back then. So he reached out to me and said, listen, they took my tweet down 2 years ago. They made me apologize. They made me say this and that, but you don't apologize. You keep going, you keep going what you're doing, and because you are standing for the truth. And I was like, at that point, I'm like, I don't care what it takes. I'm just gonna speak out. I remember after the second game, my agent called me and he said, listen, I work for you. I don't work for the NBA. So I'm just going to be honest with you. If you stop talking about China, people are going to probably forget about this, in 4 or 5 days. And you can just go out there and say that you were not educated enough, blah, blah, and you'll be fine. So we can get another contract. But if you say another word about China, if you do another thing, that whatever the NFL did it to Colin Kaepernick, that NBA is going to do it to you. You are not going to be able to get the contract ever again, because I work for you. I have to be honest with you. And I was like, okay, fine. That's exactly what I said.
You were really okay and fine about it. I mean, this is a question for activists all over the world who, when they see the stakes being that high, keep going. What keeps you going? What kept you going?
I just remember, I remember just like seeing the pain of that woman's eyes, telling me that women are getting gang rapes and tortures, and telling me about the organ harvesting. And the more you study, the more you meet people, with people, you saw, like, I was seeing like the hope that I was giving to people. I was like someone, obviously, who was a celebrity, I guess, status, that is giving hope to people who's been oppressed under Chinese dictatorship. So then after the third game, and then my third game was I was criticizing Nike. And then after that, I had a conversation with Adam Silver on the phone, 30 minutes. I remember I was on a show, actually the audio even like leaked, the recordings are leaked. You can just go ahead and watch it. I actually reposted that, which Adam Silver even himself saying that, at the end, we are business. We have a business to run. China is a different,
it's a huge market for the NBA.
Exactly, it's a billions of dollars. So I saw like Adam Silver was admitting that, and it was actually all over the internet. Well, and not just him. It was I believe a recording of Adam Silver, MBPA, one of the owners and stuff. So I was like, well, there you go. Like, what else I can show it to you? Before the Celtics, I played for Portland Trail Blazers. I averaged double-double. I started many games. We made the playoffs. So I'm asking from the people in NBA. So you're telling me a year later I forgot how to play basketball. And people would laugh at that. Even like my teammates, when we were on the bench, they were looking at me like, dude, like you have to be out there. Like you have to play. I remember how many of my teammates were telling me that every game.
But you're not out there, and right now you don't have a team, and you, in addition to the comments you've made about the NBA and being, and as you say, being blackballed by them, you've also spoken out about other NBA players who you feel haven't used their platform in the right way. You've made comments about LeBron and others. Now, I want to ask you this question because it was one that was on my mind as I was reading about you yesterday. Again, there are so many issues out there in the world, and people choose their issue. LeBron, from what I've seen, has essentially focused on US-focused issues, social justice issues. Is it right for you to criticize him because he's chosen issues that are different from you?
First of all, let me just tell you this, because whenever I criticize LeBron, people sometimes might understand it wrong. I respect his game and what he does on the court. That's one. And two, whenever I criticize LeBron, it's not about just LeBron. I called out so many other players and owners and CEOs like Phil Knight and blah, blah. Anyway, the reason I criticize LeBron, and because he is the face of the NBA and the face of Nike. And he literally, I mean, he is a billionaire. And the shoes and the companies. So whenever I criticize LeBron, it is not only about him, which I said it in all my interviews. If you are a player, if you're an athlete and you are calling yourself a social justice warrior or freedom fighter or human rights activist and blah, blah, whatever, if you are signing a deal or contract with companies like Nike, let me give you an example of Nike. Nike, what he does in America, unbelievable. They stand with Black Lives Matter, no Asian hate, Latino community, LGBTQ community. But when it comes to China, they're silent. When it comes to like this slave labor and all that stuff, they're silent. So if you're a player that's signing deals with these companies, not only Nike, I mean, there are so many of them out there, that is just one of the biggest hypocrisy to me. And when they, I'm not sure how much you know about this, but 2 years ago, when Daryl Morey tweeted that thing, and they asked LeBron about it, and he said, well, he's not educated enough, and he just didn't know his, I guess, research and stuff. And I was like, are you serious? Like that was the one thing that really frustrated me. Or people are just keep talking about me and LeBron, but I have nothing against them on the court. What I care about is him using his voice, because he is signed with so many Chinese companies out there.
You also leveled the accusation of hypocrisy at the owner of the Brooklyn Nets most recently.
Well, I mean, everybody, I mean, he's not the only one, obviously, but he is the biggest one. I mean, there was a news came out on ESPN. They were saying that I believe 40 NBA owners got tied up $10 billion in China. And the biggest one, obviously, the guy who works for the pretty much CCP and one of the owners of Alibaba, I believe, is the owner of Josai.
And this was linked to the Kyrie Irving tweet. Just to explain to people, that Kyrie Irving retweeted a link to a documentary that people deemed to be anti-Semitic. Josai made comments. You came back and said.
So I think what Kyrie obviously shared that thing. He said, I say promoting. He said he wasn't promoting. Him posting about Alex Jones and all that stuff. I was like, come on. I mean, he was in my draft class. I was like, come on, I mean, you are way better than that. But, then Josai was, saying, oh, what he did was wrong, which he could have just go and talk to the men one-on-one. I don't understand why he, as an owner, why he would put anything like that out there, even put more pressure on Kyrie. Kyrie might be not educated enough the situation that he has done. Maybe he is, maybe he's not, I'm not sure. But as an owner, why would you put a tweet out there? Why would you put him down and put yourself off just because of you want to show people that, oh yeah, you care about the things that are happening, which you pretty much, financing a genocide happening in China. You're literally one of the worst human being, owner
which
in
I'm
NBA
sure
right
he
now.
would deny. Just
I mean, everybody knows now. I mean, like if you if you say there is no genocide happening in China, people will literally laugh at that. Even like the United Nations, the high UN Human Rights Commissioner said, yes, there is a genocide. Pretty much genocide happened. You ask all the politicians, Democrats, Republicans, whoever, everybody knows the genocide happened whatever in in China. So as an owner, I was very like frustrated. I'm like, first of all, that's not how you treat your player. Even if he has done something wrong, something so terrible, why would you try to put him down like that, and you try to put yourself up and try to show people that you care while you are literally financing a genocide in China? So that's what I was really frustrated with him.
These your outspokenness, as we said, in the most recent example, of course, being the Josai exchange. You know, again, right now you don't have a team, so
Mhm.
what's your plan? Is the plan to keep? Has the activism overtaken the sport now for you?
I just turned 30, and I could play another like 4, 5, 6, whatever years, you know. I love basketball, and basketball is my first job. And people don't understand. People think I hate the NBA. No, I don't hate the NBA. NBA, I'm very thankful for the NBA. God first, then NBA, because NBA gave me the platform that I have right now. NBA gave me my voice. NBA helped me so much to grow and have fun, and you know, um, but I believe this is bigger than basketball. This is bigger than NBA. This is bigger than myself. This is bigger than anything that they can offer me. I mean, I could have played another like 5, 6 years, and just say I sign a mid-level exception. That's like almost 40 million in 6 years and stuff. But I mean, I could care less. You know, like I said again, I want to play basketball. I don't think it's going to happen ever again. I talked to many players, many basketball experts, many owners, and they said, listen, you know, you took a brave stand, but you know it's gonna come with tough consequences. But I mean, at the end, listen, I just couldn't sleep at night. Well, when I know that while I was dribbling the ball in America on the other side of the world, and I'm not only talking about China. I mean, you look at what's happening in Iran, what's happening in
Yeah.
Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, some of the African countries out there, which I have so many friends. Um, so it's like this, it needs to be talked, but people talk about every conversation, every country, every dictatorship but China. You look at, and NBA is not the only problem. You look at Hollywood, you look at big techs, academias, Congress, local Congress, Wall Street. So it's like Hollywood. So it's like NBA is not the only one, but this is just a start. And I believe there's going to be so many other projects that are coming, which is going to be done soon.
What's your definition of success? Like, as you do this work and you continue to speak out, because that's the other thing, that as an activist, you have to have an idea of the
Yeah.
destination.
Without an action, speaking out is nothing to me. You can speak out, you bring awareness, you give people hope. Sure, it's good, but like without action is nothing to me, you know. But so that's why now I work with all these different group of people. I work with Hong Kongers, Taiwanese people. I work with, you know, Tibetans and Venezuelans and Uyghurs and Cuba. So now I feel like now the whole world knows what's going on. So the next step is taking actions. We just created a bill in the Senate and Congress. Actually, it got signed by almost every member of the Congress. So if you are a company, which if you have anything to do with slave labor, you're not allowed to step into America. It passed. President Biden signed it. It's going to become a law. Already, my friends are telling me that we are seeing the effects of it. It's going to cost, if you're a company, if you still want to do with slave labor, it's going to cost you billions of dollars. So that is an action, and that is only for Uyghurs. Now we are working on so many different groups. I mean, I think the success to me is when a political prisoner is being freed, when uh, when I don't know, when the women are stopped getting tortures in jail or rapes in jail, when I know that the whole world knows about these dictatorships now. When I go to Wikipedia and said the dictatorships in the world, whenever I see Turkey is there, whenever I see China is there, I'm like, well, okay, now people start to realize what's going on, you know. But it is, I'll tell you this, it is tough because of the obviously hypocrisy side of the politics, because of they trying to have this diplomacy with the dictatorships out there. It does become very, very, very tough, you know, because, for example, Turkey. I've been working with Turkey issues so many times, and America is actually don't want to push Turkey to Russia, so they don't want to, you know, take some real actions and stuff. But like, obviously, you have to push for it. So it's like it is like a full-time job. But you know, I like it.
Last question. Are you happy with what you've paid a tremendous price personally, professionally? You've talked about what success is. That's still a long way off. Let's be realistic. But right now, Enes Kanter Freedom, when you think about where you're at,
Am I
are
happy?
you happy?
That's a really good question. Am I happy? Not yet, I will say. I will say not, because if I say happy, because we are not free. I am not free till everyone is free. And if I'm happy, then I feel like I am betraying my other human rights activists, fellows, or people around the world. I remember the day my dad got freed. I was like, okay, well, who's next? You know, who we gonna free next? Because like I remember people were telling me, well, you know, your dad got finally free. You can relax now. You can take a vacation. You can, you know, stop talking about any of these issues. I'm like, my job is just starting. It's not. This is not the end of it. You know, there are millions of thousands of people out there who's been oppressed by their government, and there are so many people are in jail right now waiting for help. So I believe till the last person is freed, I don't want to say I'm happy. I know it's a crazy dream. I know it's
No,
like,
we all have to dream. We have to
listen,
have destinations.
without dream you lose hope, I
Yeah.
think, and without hope, I guess we are nothing. So
Well, Enes Kanter Freedom, thank you for
of
speaking so
course,
honestly and passionately with us. We wish you every success. The world needs these things to happen, these changes to be made. We wish you every success, but I also wish you some happiness along the way.
appreciate that. No, that means a lot to me. Thank you so much.